Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Young Leaders Awards. Now, what is the Young Leaders? Essentially, this is part of Explorers, which is considered to be an optional part. But if you do any kind of volunteering with a younger section or younger people who are not in the Explorer section of Scouting, but perhaps are in Beavers, Cubs, Scouts, or even Squirrels, you will be earning towards your Young Leader Awards in some capacity, especially even if you're doing just Duke of Edinburgh's awards, and for whatever reason you're not doing the Platinum, Diamond, and King Scout awards. Although I'd highly recommend you do them both at the same time, given that the Duke of Edinburgh's awards are actually part of the requirements for the Chief Scouts Awards and the King Scout Award eventually. But essentially, the Young Leaders Awards recognise youth participation in scouting, especially when it comes to mentoring, planning, organising, and leading sessions for younger members of scouting. So essentially, almost as soon as you become a member of Explorers, you're eligible to undertake this young leader training, which encompasses fairly safe, normal things you'd expect, just how to run sessions, how to run games correctly. There's some elements of first aid, safeguarding, safety, things like that that are all going to be very useful, and they help you equip you to better help lead these different sessions for the younger people. And of course, if you're doing, as I mentioned, Duke of Edinburgh's or the Chief Scouts Awards, you'll be doing that kind of stuff anyway, so you can get two for one. And why is it worth doing this? Well, you get a number of different awards for participating in the Young Leaders program. In fact, you get more awards for this one thing than you do for any other individual award in Scouting. You get so many different things from this that it sort of stands out all by itself. Usually, when you complete an award, for example, the Explorer Belt, you get the Explorer Belt cloth patch that you wear on your left arm, and you also get the actual Explorer Belt you can wear around your waist. In terms of the Young Leader program, you get more than twice as many awards as you see here. At the very top, you get a number of different cloth badges that you can wear on your Explorer uniform. You can't wear them on any other uniform, unfortunately, so once you move on to Network, you have to remove them and put them onto your camp blanket or wherever you keep your old badges. However, the other three awards you get from being a young leader and having done different parts of the young leader program, you can actually continue wearing even into adult leadership, even past the age of 25. So I'm just going to run through very quickly. So essentially, starting from the top, we have the what are considered the core young leader badges for the Explorer section. Essentially, you get that middle one with the acorn when you complete what's known as Module A. Module A is your getting started modules, which just encompass, being safe around young people. Relatively simple to do. And then you get these additional oak leaf badges that go around, as shown in the diagram. You get one per young leader mission. They're called missions. There are four of them. We'll cover them in just a second, but they tend to be fairly easy to earn. And once you've earned all four, then you end up getting the full completed young leader program, and you can earn those extra awards at the bottom that I'm going to cover now. So essentially, in addition to those cloth badges at the very top, you get a Young Leader Woggle, or you can buy a Young Leader Woggle or otherwise attain one. There's no official requirement I can see as to you have to complete any particular part of the Young Leader program to be eligible to wear this. But I would imagine it's sort of down to your own discretion. I imagine if you, for example, have completed your core modules and you just want to wear this while you're at a volunteering event with the younger section, just to identify that you are a young leader there, then you can do that. Or, if you just got a basic plain leather woggle or a plastic one, God forbid, then you can get this one, and it's a little bit nicer in case you don't have any alternative woggles you could use. So it's a nice little optional woggle there if you've been a young leader or you are a young leader. And the more important of these awards are the bottom two here. And as you can see there, there's this Young Leader Adult Service Ribbon, or otherwise known as Young Leader Adult Service Award. Essentially, you can wear this having just participated in some capacity in the Young Leader scheme. You don't have to have completed it, but as long as you've done some significant sort of service towards the Young Leader program and participated in it, you're eligible to wear this, I believe, on your uniform. It can actually be worn on your Explorer uniform, even though it's an adult service award, I believe, because these types of ribbons can be worn regardless of which section you're in if you earn them. It's just that the majority of these kinds of ribbons are various different adult-only awards. And it's worth mentioning that this is actually a very interesting standout when it comes to the other adult service ribbons. Most of these ribbons that you may have seen on the chest of your adult leaders in your section, in your Explorer unit, they tend to be, white or grey or kind of mundane. However, as you can see, the Young Leaders Adult Service ribbon is very brightly coloured, and it has that acorn, that purple, and that green, which makes it stand out quite a lot. And it's worth sort of chasing up your Young Leader scheme just to get something signed off at least, because that means if you ever become an adult leader in future, you can have this on your uniform and it stands you out a little bit. It sort of shows that you've actually gone ahead and done at least some service to scouting in terms of leading other sections and volunteering, aside from adult leadership as it normally is. And you can, as far as I know, although there might be some different guidance on this that isn't in POR, you can actually wear this pretty much in perpetuity on your adult uniform. There's some confusion as to whether once you've done 5 years of adult service, it gets replaced with your 5-year ribbon. But there's no explicit wording anywhere that I can find that indicates that this is actually considered a length of service ribbon. It's just a service ribbon. And you probably will have seen at least somebody in your section or your unit, or your group or your district who actually wears a number of different service ribbons. So those 5, 10, 15-year adult ribbons that look fairly similar and have those numbers in green numbers where that acorn is. Even though POR says explicitly you're only supposed to wear one of those, I'm sure you've seen leaders, we've all seen leaders that wear multiples. So I think that you could probably be justified in wearing this even if you've got your 5-year ribbon or whatever the case might be, because it doesn't say anywhere that the Young Leader Adult Service ribbon is a time-in service ribbon, it's just a service ribbon. And it stands out quite well. So if you are leading a section and you have this, and even if one young person asks about it, that's the main thing, so you can explain what the young leaders are and why they should be one when they are eligible to become a young leader. Which is the point of all these kinds of awards, right? It's the point of why we give any kind of patch award, is to recognize contributions to scouting, recognize achievements in scouting, and to also inspire other people who see those awards and inquire about them and ask you about them, and you can tell them the story, right? That's the main thing. And then, of course, at the very bottom there, we have the Young Leader belt, as it's known. And this is one of only 2 different belts we award in scouting. There's the Young Leader belt and the Explorer belt. And you may know that the Explorer belt is considered, in my opinion at least, the second most senior award right after the King Scout Award, given how difficult it is to do, and how sort of standout and an extra surplus to requirements it is usually. So it's quite nice there. And it goes to show, the Explorer belt, you have to do 10 days expedition abroad in a foreign country to earn that belt. And the Young Leader belt is earned pretty much as a follow-up, really, to the standard Chief Scouts Platinum, Diamond, and the King Scout Award. Because just by doing a few extra things and achieving those missions, which we'll cover in a second, as long as you've completed your core training, you can earn this belt, and it's going to be the belt that you wear up to the point that you earn your Explorer belts, although actually you can use them interchangeably. So if you've earned your Young Leader belt and you want to use that belt buckle on your Explorer belt, you can. It's up to you. But the main thing, as I say, is that it's recognising that you've made a big contribution to youth leadership and volunteering for that extended period of time in a different section, helping run them. And I think it's worth mentioning, yes, that even if you If one young person asks you about any of these, such as your belt or whatever the case might be, and you explain to them about the program, if even just one young person then becomes a young leader themselves, and you've made a big impact in terms of hours of service and things like that, and someone who's potentially going to become an adult leader later in life and things like that. So it's worth doing these kinds of awards, if just to leave a little bit of a legacy behind, even after you go into other things or whatever the case might be, or they move on to whatever. So it's pretty important to pass on the importance of these awards, especially if you're helping to run them. And just to touch on the fact that some people consider the Young Leader Awards to be a little bit of basically you go somewhere and you run games. I'd like to just dispel that very quickly, is that being a young leader, especially with doing the different missions, requires you to do a lot more than that. And any leader who's listening to this and thinks that young leaders are only good for running games, you're sorely mistaken, I must say. The truth is that young leaders are people who are generally have gone through various different sections of scouting and have a lot of service time. You know, they may have their 7 year, 8 year, 9 year, whatever the case might be, of their own youth service awards, those little stars that they get on their chests, right? And their experience with running games and doing their Chief Scouts Gold Award, Chief Scouts Silver Award, wherever it might be, can be quite invaluable, as well as the enthusiasm and the way that they can connect to the young people, right? Because they are only a few years removed usually from those young people themselves, and that enthusiasm can be very useful. It's just that leaders who have young leaders underneath them, or working with them rather, need to recognise that fact, and rather than just having them run the games, they should certainly be part of the planning, the organisation. If they'd like to be, they can be part of really running their own nights is a very important part of things, and that actually goes a long way to making young people feel more engaged with scouting from a volunteering perspective. If they have something they're passionate about, some kind of hobby they do, for example, if they like, I don't know, Warhammer or whatever the case might be, then they can run a model making night and get their section a model making badge. Or if they're into archery, then you can go to an archery range or whatever the case might be, right? So it's about tapping into that from a leader's perspective if they have a young leader. And of course, if you're a young leader in someone's section or a unit or a group, then let it be known to your leaders that you'd like to be more engaged, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to have you become more engaged, because in reality, that's what scouting's all about, right? It's about bringing people together and making the best possible program for that section, right? So moving on, we have the requirements here. They seem quite daunting. These are training modules. In reality, when I did my young leader training a long time ago, we had it where we have multiple different modules being ticked off in one day, and sometimes there would be a weekend's worth of young leader stuff, and I think I got pretty much all of mine signed off in like a couple of weeks. However, it really depends on how your district young leader sort of lead volunteer actually runs this. There are some places that sort of do one module a week and cycle it, but that can mean that if you miss 1 week, you have to wait several months to cycle back, and that can be a pretty bad idea. So if there's anyone listening to this who is a young leader sort of district or county level volunteer, I would make it a lot more on demand, perhaps do some of these online. But regardless, if you're listening to this and you want to be a young leader or you are a young leader, just making sure that you message your district or whatever the case might be about these modules and making sure they're done. You can get these undertaken very quickly. And once you've got module A out of the way, that's the most important one. I believe that gets you the core badge, and the rest of this is partially optional, I think, certain parts of it at least, but I think it's worth doing most of it. They're not difficult, they're not long, these different modules. It's mostly about just making you aware of how to make a good program and things like that, and just making you more proficient, so that when you go to wherever you're volunteering, you can talk more easily with adult leaders who may have been there for a few years and really sort of put in your word essentially. And of course, we have Module K with that first aid masterclass, which is of course incredibly useful even outside of scouting. I've used the first aid that I've learned in scouting many different times to actually help people. even in some dire situations at university where people have been, in all kinds of awful situations. As you can see from these, that they're not difficult. I don't remember there being any kind of standardized testing. It's more just that you go there and you listen and you take it in, make your own notes. But it's not difficult to do these. It might seem like a lot, but really it's not. Trust me. So moving on, we have the missions. So there's 4 of them. I'm going to run through them one at a time. So essentially, the first one is games, right? This is the one that most leaders know about, and why most leaders will ask you to run games, especially given it helps them. It helps buy them more time to set up what the activity for the night is potentially. But by doing just 3 games, running and planning 3 games, you essentially can tick off this entire mission and get that oak leaf awarded to you. It's got some examples there at the bottom. And it says that you have to incorporate these different leadership styles and things. In reality, you don't need to show any evidence, as far as I'm aware, that you've incorporated these things in a certain way. It's just the case that your section leaders need to sign a bit of paper or send a message saying that you've actually ran this number of games. So don't get too caught up on the bit where it says you've got to incorporate modules B and C and E. It's more that you're going to learn useful things during them, and you may apply them where necessary or where you feel best, but don't feel you need to justify, which parts of which modules you've used. Just basically, your section leaders will sign off regardless that you've done these if you've actually run the games. And running through games is not difficult. It really isn't. Anyone can do this, but it is useful, and it gets you it's an easy entry into the young leader sort of scheme and what we do with young leaders, and also an introduction to adult leadership and sort of why and how to help control and guide the young people to have a good time with games and things. As it says there at the bottom, there are some examples. Run a game beginning and end of the section night. That's the easiest one to do. You can just do that any week of Scouts or whatever. And there are some other examples. Running wide games is very fun, I must say. Running wide games in camps is always a blast. You need usually a couple of people to do that. So if you've got another young leader or whatever the case might be in your section, you can work together for that and sign off both your games in one go. Sign off both your mission ones in one go. It's very, very good there. And some other ones there as well in regards to badges and things like that. And it's worth mentioning that these games and things may be part of the requirements for your Duke of Edinburgh's nights and those hours, or they might also apply for your Platinum, Diamond, and Gold. Your Platinum, Diamond, and King's sort of volunteering aspects and things like that, and your ICVs. So if you don't know about those, there are some videos I've made about these topics. But essentially, one of the things you can do for parts of your Platinum, Diamond, and King Scout awards, you can do a number of nights, planning a number of nights for one of these international community and values aspects of those awards, planning and running some nights. And if you plan and run and you include these games, these themed games towards those, that counts for this. So you can actually tick off these young leader awards very easily if you just do those different ICVs that are related to running and planning nights in different sections. Moving on, we have the mission 2. Plan and run an activity, and this is not a game, with the section you're volunteering with. As it says, it should be planning, organising, delivery, gathering materials. What this really boils down to is running one part of a night. So you'll probably be aware, if you've done any kind of volunteering with a different section than yourself, that usually we split up the night into an agenda. We have sort of a game at the start and the end usually, and in the middle we have a couple of different activities sort of split up that we can do depending on what you're doing. So for example, if you're running scientist, then you can have 2 different activities regarding that scientist badge, a number of different experiments. If you run just one experiment, for example, that would count for activity. It's just a subsection of the night. Planning and organisation, delivery, again, you can write some stuff up for this if you'd like to, but really it's just down to your section leaders, your adult volunteers in your section, to just tick off that you've done this. As it says there at the bottom, to complete this mission, you could use it as part of an activity badge, as part of the program, as a section of a camp program, so pioneering, things like that. Planning the route for a hike is a very easy one to do because there are always plenty of hikes and things going on. Initiating some team challenges. This is a very interesting one, actually, because some of the more interesting things I've seen in my time in scouting is things such as patrol leader challenges, where the different patrol leaders are brought together and given a collective challenge to do. So that might be very interesting to try and emulate in some nights, separately, perhaps from the main program. Something to bear in mind. And of course, there are some other things here down towards the bottom. A very easy one there is running an activity of the section relating to one of your own hobbies and interests. So again, if you have anything that you're particularly passionate about, chances are there's a scout badge, there's a beaver badge, there's a cub badge, whatever, relating to that activity. And if you are a active member of that section you're volunteering with, if you're at least in part of a WhatsApp group or a Facebook Messenger group or whatever, you can just throw into that chat, I'm interested in running an activity for this thing. Can I put it in one of the nights? And then your leaders will go, yes. And then you can just do this. And again, it's very easy to tick this off. I did this actually as part of one of the other missions. So as I mentioned, for example, with the scientist badge, it's very easy if you are a beaver or a cub volunteer to run some very, very basic experiments, and that would count for those activities. So moving on. Number 3, program planning. This is the most involved, but really it's not very difficult. So you may or may not be aware that generally at the end of every term, so school term that is, given that scouts break up at the same time that the schools do, at the end and the start of every term, or interchangeably, one of those, we plan the program for that term. All you need to do is show up to your hut for that leaders planning meeting, which generally is maybe an hour long, if that, where essentially the leaders there will just discuss some ideas as to what to do for the future in that term and those few weeks that you have, or whatever however long that term might be, maybe a couple of months. And just by being there, you essentially tick this off, because you're there to represent mostly the young people of that section, because you're one of the younger people in your leadership team. And as it actually says here, asking the young people in the section to contribute their ideas to the program. This is actually a relatively new change as far as I'm aware, but this contributes to that U-shape award, which you may be familiar with if you're a Explorer Scout. And if not, there should be a video that I've made in relation to that. But essentially it's to do with making sure young people have a say of what their program is and how it's run. So the way we do this in our particular scout troop that I volunteer with is that we have nights that are troop forums or section forums if it's a joint meeting, where we have the big whiteboard and we basically get them to shout out different badges that they'd like to do or different events they'd like to do. We use the big posters that show all the scout badges that exist and just hand those around so they can use those as a base to go off of. Essentially, we take a bunch of ideas down and who would like to help run those, who wants to run the games for those and things. And then we do basically a vote tally of who wants to do what. And that's a very good example of how to do this and how to easily sign off this mission 3, is that you can go to one of those program planning meetings and maybe the week beforehand at the very end of that session or whatever, or as its own session, you can have one of these troop forums. And it's very important to do those because there's this new movement now that scouting should be youth-led and that it shouldn't be leaders going, let's do the same thing as last year, let's do the same thing we always do. It should be something that changes depending on what the young people are actually interested in. So if you think, for example, your unit that you're volunteering with is a little bit set in their ways, especially if they're a scout troop, I think that if you're volunteering at a beaver sort of colony or a cub pack or something, then it's hard to get the young people that involved in the program. But you can sort of innovate a little bit with this if you'd like. But if not, there's some other ways you can tick this off too, where if there is a district meeting or whatever the case might be, you can ask to attend that. Feel free to talk to your section leaders about that. There's a lot of ways to go about this. It says at the bottom, running and playing meetings. The U-Shape Award, as I say, has a lot of resources for that. Section planning meetings happen every term. They're very easy to do. You don't have to do much, just sort of attend them, recognize what's going on, sort of contribute where you want to, things like that. It's very easy. At the very bottom, you can do a Patrol Leaders Forum or a Sixers Forum. Those are, I think, less useful nowadays than troop forums, but it's up to you. Essentially, that's where you just get the patrol leaders together and discuss the section program with them. So maybe you can suggest bringing them along to a leader meeting, but really it's up to you. So it sounds like a lot to be part of program planning, but really it's not. There's very easy ways you can sign this off if you want to. And again, you don't really have to show any evidence that you've done this. For the most part, you don't have to make any documents or forms about it. As long as your section leaders there can sign off to your district young leader administrator, then you're okay, which is just a matter of them emailing them, really. And number 4, delivery. This is probably the most important one. So that is following on from mission 3, really. This is the one that follows naturally off that, is that while you're doing that planning and things like that and attending it, you just put your hand up for a part of the program that looks interesting to run. And then it's as simple as just putting down some ideas of what you want to do on that night, slicing up that 2-hour meeting or whatever into, okay, we'll do a game at the start, a game at the end, and 2 or 3 things in the center. And that's as easy as it is to make a night program, to make a night's program. Speaking as someone who's made a whole bunch, being an adult volunteer in scouting for a long time, and having been a young leader, running a part of the program really is not that difficult, and it means a lot, like, to the young people, especially if it's something you're passionate about. It's a very easy way to deliver and sort of get them to engage. Because if you're trying to teach scouts or whatever the case might be, something that you're not very interested in, they tend to pick up on that if you're not careful. So usually just put your hand up when you're organising that program for something that you're actually interested in, and there will be something on there that you are interested in. For example, I've got some permits when it comes to air rifles and archery and tomahawks and things like that. I really enjoy doing that. I always find it very cool. So whenever it comes up that we have a camp or something else going on, I always put my hand up to help run a range or something like that, right? And that's a part of the section program. So even, things like that you can do if you'd like to. Although I think air rifles might have certain things that you may have to have a range officer with you, but you can look into that and talk about that locally. Those are just some examples. If you're really into cycling, then you can just do an evening on cycling, for example, and go around a reservoir or something, or whatever the case might be. Okay, and as it says there, just try to put them around a theme. That's easy enough. Basically, what a night is, a scout is, a night is a theme with several different activities inside of it. Easy peasy. And really, you can delegate these. If there are certain parts of a night that you need some help with, then feel free to ask your section leaders to help with those. And as it says there, number 3, just review and evaluate how you did. So that's as simple as just at the very end when you're doing the flag break, basically just say, did you enjoy tonight? And they go, yes. And then you go, what would you like to change? Or, whatever the case might be, and just do a couple minutes on that. It's really easy to do. And as it says there at the bottom, there are different ways to do this, a number of different ones, as you can see. Running a challenge award is usually a little bit more difficult, given it has a lot of different requirements. But if you feel like a challenge, then feel free to do that, because challenge awards are one of the most important things we do or get people to achieve as volunteers and as leaders. Because if you're not aware, challenge awards lead up to those Chief Scouts awards. So if you're volunteering with a Scout section, but making sure that they do their, for example, skills challenge award or whatever the case might be, they're actually getting one step closer to getting that Chief Scouts Gold Award. and that's a huge point of pride for a lot of young people, and a big reason as to why people continue into Explorers and on from there. But of course, it's all down to what you want to do as a young leader, however much or little you want to do. But I would recommend making the most of your time at Young Leaders, because it may fall into the trap of going, oh, I'll just tag along and run some games and stuff. And not only will you not get those awards we showed earlier at the very start, but you're sort of wasting your time. You're sort of sitting around chatting, doing nothing. If you actually decide to run nights, trust me, it's much more fun if you're running a night, because you're actually doing stuff and you're always, wandering around, and you get a lot of respect, especially if you're a young person as a young leader and you're leading nights. It means you're going to get more respect from the adult leaders, and perhaps you might even get a commissioner's commendation or something from doing that. There's a lot of commissioners out there, district commissioners especially, who are very interested in keeping an eye on young leaders. And if you do well enough, you might expect that to trickle upwards and you get some kind of special award. And those aren't just, minor things, right? Because sometimes when people say special awards or special commendations, it's something really minor, like, some chocolate or something, or a thank you card. But in Scouts, you can actually earn those ribbons, like, for example, we saw earlier, that actually stay with you. And one of those ones is a purple one called the Commissioner's Commendation, which, if you do really well, like exceptionally well as a leader or a young leader, you can earn that. So it's definitely worth thinking about that if you want to maximize how you use your time. And of course, if you do, well enough, you can put those on your personal statements or your CVs and things like that, saying, oh, I did X and Y with young people, I can volunteer, I've done this, I've been in challenging situations, and of course, that all helps in the end. So that's it, I think. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it is interesting. I would recommend following this video up with the one about youthscape. I recommend following this video up with the video that I'm about to publish about U-Shape Award and those different aspects. And of course, if you're looking into this, then chances are you're looking into the Chief Scouts Platinum Diamond or the King Scout Award, and I'd absolutely recommend doing these two together or doing those different things together to earn that. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. Thanks.